get, because I always know, like, I'm always like, you don't seem nervous at all, which is good, but there's people that we don't know, or the big titles, you're like, hey, why would he or she be nervous? And they come in, they're like, I'm terribly nervous right now. I was like, this would take all the pressure away. You get all the do-overs you need, if ever. We're also, we call it I always said we're like the good guy podcast, so we're here to make people look good. We're not here to, like, expose the dark side of payments or anything crazy, right? So, it's not like, what's the scam? Like, no, we're not doing that, unless you want to talk about it.
Well, though, but I think, though, one of the things that'll probably be most interesting is to talk a little bit about that, because I won't name names, but, like, got hacked. I think they paid a ransom. They didn't turn over all the IP and stuff that they got. There's other gaming providers that have been hacked or held from ransom. A lot of the iGaming operators and us in payments, we see a ton of fraud, like, every day. It literally takes up a good part of my day just dealing with it. And I don't think what a lot of operators and equipment manufacturers realize is how much, how overmatched they are, right?
Yeah.
So they'll go on Reddit, they'll go on Twitter to look for scams, not realizing that on Signal and Telegram and the dark web, there's these very concerted and organized schemes to manipulate offers, new promotions. They'll find wrinkles in payment walls and other operators, and then they just hone in on it, man. And before you know it, you're chasing $500,000, $1 million in bad debt. So it's a huge problem, but it's not just payments. It's hitting everybody. Yeah. The difference is nobody really wants to talk about it.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Welcome back to the MaxBet podcast. We're joined today by Diallo Gordon, president of Pavilion Payments. Appreciate you coming by, man. Thank you.
No, I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Payments is, it's very buzzworthy right now. A lot of people talking about it. It's, I'll get into some of the other words they're using, not always nice ones here later, but it does seem, outside looking in, like Pavilion specifically has had a lot of positive momentum. Seems like you're chasing a lot. I think I'm hearing a lot about the company. So your tenure, probably the last year or so, I probably should know the exact time, but like it seems like a lot of changes have. Like, what's been going on for you guys? What's driving all that?
Yeah, quite a bit. So what we're doing is we typically see like our competitive vertical, like our oligopoly, as everybody kind of has the same thing. ATM, debit, credit, check product.
Yeah.
Brick and mortar, iGaming. What I think's changed the most is we've taken more of a customer-centric approach where we're sitting down with operators and talking about the things that other payments companies are otherwise afraid to talk about, like cashless. Is it really the right thing to do at this time? Is cash going to really get off the floor? Is there a way that you could make it truly frictionless? Things like that. Other products that we're looking to do are things that aren't meant for customer-facing guests, but actually back of house and hospitality, which we see a huge need for as well. And then on our iGaming side, we're looking at things for like product differentiation. So if you're inside of a iGaming wallet, let's say it's a sportsbook operator, and you've got multiple ways to get money into a wallet and multiple ways to get money out of a wallet, what types of products can we build that makes you want to use the Pavilion product to do so? And that's typically through incenting and marketing. So putting some innovation around the choice and how money goes in and out of a wallet.
Interesting. Yes, you're really dialing into some of these like really specific areas, solving customer problems. One of the things you said right off the hop was these other companies are afraid to talk about, or they're maybe reluctant.
Sure.
Is it, and the first thing you said was cashless. Is it just the idea that hey, if we go to cashless, we might lose all these revenue streams, or what makes them nervous or reticent? Like, why the hesitation for them to jump into that?
I mean, there's a lot. We could probably take up the whole
show on that. Yeah.
But I'll give you 3 to 5.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay. So first is you got to prove the ROI, right? So if it's very expensive up front, it takes a lot to change, pull up carpet, pull up Walker Duck, go out and buy servers and licenses and upgrade slot machines. So if it's very, very heavy coming in the door, you're kind of already behind the 8 ball when it comes to proving out the ROI. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that I think a lot of payment providers are nervous about talking with and collaborating with the equipment manufacturers, the IGTs, the Aristocrats, the Konamis, and the Light Wonders. I disagree with that. You should be able to have a straight-on conversation. But I think the reason why there's a little bit of nervousness there is that in some instances, we're more competitive than we think.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of people try to separate those two, but when it comes to cashless, it gets really, really, it gets really, really cloudy.
Interesting.
The other is like the patron experience, the customer experience. I mean, if it's a pain in the ass, they're not going to want to do it, right? And if they're not going to want to do it, then it basically views a very negative customer experience, and you don't want that, right? You don't want that to happen. There's a few critical things that you got to get right. You got to get money into the door, so cash to the floor is important. Customer acquisition, all the money that it took to bring that person in the door, if they have a negative experience, then it's just it's just not going to work. So those are the types of things that we look at. But honestly, call it like midpoint of the year, some work that we're doing with Apple to truly make this a frictionless experience. And as a service provider, especially when it comes to cashless, I want to be invisible. I don't want them to even know that I'm there. I just want people to have the same experience that they would have at a Starbucks or a Jimmy John's or a point of sale that they're in a restaurant where they tap and go. That's exactly what I want. But still do that in a safe, compliant way. And that's the calculus that we've been working on.
Yeah, that's so relatable. I laugh because I'm hearing you and all I hear is like my background as an offensive lineman. Like if you know my name, I'm horrible, right? Because you only get mad. Penalty, this idiot, what is he doing? Payments provider, same thing. Like I don't know who's taking my. I gave my money. I tapped to pay, and I got my thing. That was it. All of a sudden, it's not. Now I'm looking at the point of sale. What's this point of sale company? What's this Pavilion logo on the screen? It's like no. That's smooth. That's seamless. Now we're good. Yeah, it's so funny.
The dynamic's interesting because if you're like an aristocrat or a light and wonder, and you introduce a premium product, and the machine that wins through the roof, people love it. There's never a seat, in the house. You want your name, out there. In payments, if your name is out there, it's probably not a good thing.
Yeah.
You're having outages, or there's some big scam going on, and so for us, we're kind of conditioned. You're exactly right to be blocking, tackling, but we're not even the tackle.
Yeah.
We're more of the guard. Guard center.
Just anonymous grunts in the middle, making it all happen. Yeah, very relatable. It's so funny. What? So you mentioned the mid-year tease a little bit, and then the Apple price. Is that what we're talking about? Like this, and is it Apple Pay that you're working through, or is it too soon to talk about?
A little too soon, but I'll just say we're working with Apple, and we're looking to work with other alternate payment providers to have a more seamless experience, but to also make it really, really clean for the equipment manufacturers to work with us. So I'll give you an example. Some products. Instead of the normal bill and ticket meters that usually step when you put a bill or a ticket into a machine, they're using free play to award cashless, if you will. And that could present some challenges on the balancing and reconciliation, accounting, but also some things that a lot of operators really don't think about. So I'll give you an example. If you're using one of our standard kiosks, or you're using an ATM, and it's supposed to dispense $300, but you get $200, so you're short $100.
Yeah.
There's a process to follow where, hey, I didn't get my $100. The casino says call your bank. You call your bank. The bank works with us, the provider, and says, yep, you got approved for $300, only $200 dispense. Pay her the $100, right? That's how it works. Well, when you introduce cashless, and you're talking about free play in those meters. If someone from Wells Fargo or Bank of America calls a provider and says, hey, I've got this patron that says, they didn't get their $100. You say, oh, wait a minute, I got to go pull these reports. And, oh, yeah, that came up as free play, but it starts to get real convoluted. So then you have what's called chargeback risk or friendly fraud, right? So someone did a transaction at a slot machine utilizing the free play meters to deliver that experience. For whatever reason, maybe they lost and they want to get that money back. If they file a Reg E, it's really hard with their bank. It's really hard to fight that. So in certain instances, that's friendly fraud where that patron will get that money back. And that's bad, right? Punishes the operator, punishes us. Much the same if there's a mistake and it's a genuine mistake. And instead of looking at just the traditional meters and the blocking and tackling of gaming, you got to discern what's free play, what's not. Then there's actually people who were harmed, but it's going to be hard to get them their money back. So the approach that we took is it was hard, but just because it's hard, it was hard doesn't mean that we weren't going to do it, right?
Yeah.
Is to work to figure out how to do it the right way.
Yeah, I didn't realize that's how they were working that. Currently.
Some of them do.
I mean, not all. It's in certain scenarios, because that does seem like it would be a mess just from an accounting perspective. Because if you got, I mean, maybe there's a mechanism behind the first layer of just free play to know this is free play cashless versus free play truly earned promotional free play. But yeah, it just seems like anytime you're funneling money into a bucket that's mislabeled, it just seems like a problem. Right?
Exactly.
To just build the highway, or however you want to call it, the pipeline of this is your cashless spend, it sounds like it's a pain, but doing it right kind of saves everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny to never think of it. You mentioned something, the term in there that I just want to make sure I heard right. Did you say Reg 8? Is that the...
Reg E. So Reg in banking, if you have a dispute, if there's a customer dispute between a merchant and an individual patron, there's a process that has to be followed to be able to make that customer whole and to investigate to say whether or not this happened or it didn't. So a lot of payments companies will have an entire settlement group that will work with the various banks to make sure that customers are made whole.
Yeah. And that's wild. Okay, cool. Yeah, I just want to, because I'm like, sometimes we buzz through these terms and I'm like, let me make sure I heard that right, because people listening are like, what is that? Yeah. Anyway, so then you mentioned friendly fraud. Okay, so that's, we're just going to pretend they're it's accidental. They put you over. How big is the dark side risk in payments, right? Like, is that a big part of your time? Like, how much is, because I feel like nowadays, and, we had somebody on earlier that talked about cybersecurity, and they're always out to get you, or they're trying. Like, is that true here too? Is that like...
I don't think that's enough.
Okay.
What that person said, they're always trying to get you. They're always trying to get you. They're current. They're organized. They're methodical. They're pragmatic. They share information. They're patient, right? So a lot of times when they'll find a vulnerability, they just wait and see what you do and what you don't do, and to see if they could take a little bit further. But I would tell you a significant portion of my day and my week is literally spent on combating fraud, and we see it all the time. On the brick and mortar side, maybe not as much, but for like our brothers and sisters in iGaming and like these sportsbook operators, I mean, I can only empathize with them. They get it all day long, and it is source of funds. It's the KYC component. It's also when you look at the getting set up for an account, right, and going through that entire process. There's a lot of proprietary tools and algorithms that we use to determine if someone really, is who they say they are, right? That's not just on identity or geolocation. It's assets. It's connecting to bank accounts. It's devices, device IDs. I mean, there's a whole series of things that happen. But the expectation for a positive guest experience is that happens in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, right.
Right? And so all these things have to happen. And sometimes, like on our platforms, people will be, they're going to be good consumers, but maybe they get approved for like lower limits when it comes to them wagering for the first time. But we do that for, a reason to protect them. But to give you an example, people think about Reddit and Twitter as the right vehicles for bad actors to communicate. No. Sometimes when people can expose a glitch in a system or something that happened, maybe they'll get on Reddit. But it's the dark web. It's the places that a lot of compliance and IT groups, they don't go, but they probably should to understand what people are saying about their products and services. And over there, you just find a lot of the tools and tricks and techniques that people do to slip things like KYC, to slip things like source of funds, and to slip things like payment sources, and flat out stealing entire people's identities. And when I say their entire identity, you got first name, last name, date of birth. That would be bad. Okay? First name, last name, date of birth, social. That would be really bad, right? First name, last name, date of birth, social, home address. Oh man, that's starting to get really bad. We've seen things where first name, last name, date of birth, social, home address, work history, routing number, bank account numbers, literally the entire gambit. So we're very, very proactive, ourselves in trying to combat that. What I think we don't do enough as a gaming community is try to have a collaborative culture where we're all talking about it, because everybody's trying to solve it in silos. And what I'm saying is the bad actors aren't.
Yeah, they're all collaborating on these chat rooms or whatever you want to call it, this dark web,
So whether you're an equipment manufacturer, a gaming payments provider, or an operator, there needs to be more of a collaborative community where people are actually talking about these things, what they're seeing, what they're not seeing. But right now, it's not happening. So, but what I'm trying to do here, the culture that I'm building over there, Mark Allsenser's our CIO slash CTO.
Yep.
His information security team, very, very good, very, very buttoned up, crisp, current. But what I love about them is they're collaborative. So when things happen with customers, they are the first ones to get on a call and say, let's talk about it. Let me show you and tell you what I've seen. Let me see what you're working with, and let's try to help you. Most other providers, they kind of shy away with that because they want to absolve themselves of the liability.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that. Certainly you got to be pragmatic about what you do, but we want to make sure that we're helping our partners, not leaving them in a silo.
Yeah, you're ready for the fight. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Which maybe because you're a vet, you're like, I don't back down. But as it is, yeah, I guess that's a good point. Like, and I guess on the other side, you go, well, look, we don't want to be as collaborative because if I can figure it out first,
sure,
I stand to make the most money.
Yeah.
Right? The theory would be like, Hillary and I are both trying to solve it. If I beat her in the race, hey, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, come buy it from me, and then I get a X amount of sales head start. So there's a disincentive to be friendly, but at the same time, like, it's only going to help beat up all these, bad actors, however you want to call it, right? And just say, look, they're all just patiently waiting for you to screw up, or they just hope you guys don't talk to each other. That's what we're just continuing on down the road. Yeah, it's pretty wild to see.
Have you found things on the dark web? Has your team found things about either Pavilion Payments or other providers in the industry?
Yes, absolutely.
And you're like, oh, that'd be really helpful if this company went and looked and saw that.
They absolutely should. And the answer is yeah.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
So it's good to see you guys monitor that, and then I don't know if it's patch your own
Yeah.
product, but you're at least aware of how they're trying to match it. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Are there customers out there, and you know whether you can say their names or not, that are doing it right, that are folks you're going, okay, these guys or girls, this customer is leveraging technology that you're providing, they're kind of bringing people to the table, like, and if they are, like, what are they doing? Like, what can people learn maybe from the best adopters, the early adopters of this technology? Like, because my assumption is, just listening to all the kind of the literature, the dialogue about payments, everyone's behind, right? Like, what you guys could do for a customer, most customers aren't taking advantage of, is the way I'm going to say that, right? So there's more technology than they're using for the most part. So I guess if I'm listening to this, we have a lot of folks that operate casinos or rinks that listen, and it's like, all right, well, I don't know what to do, man. Yeah, it sounds easy, but to your point, I can't pull up all the carpet. Like, it's funny when you said, I didn't even think about carpet moving as even a barrier to cashless. But then you got all this information. Like, what are the leaders doing? Are they just saying cut the check and do it, or is there smaller things they can do? Like, how can somebody that's maybe not all the way where they need to be, like, take one or two steps closer to where they need to go?
That's a great question. Yeah. So that's the approach that we're taking with our cashless, right? So let's say that we want something appless, and we're going to expose an SDK. We want to talk with customers about that, because if they have their own, let's say, mobile app or their own strategy, it's a really terrible experience if I want to introduce cashless, but then it's going to take 5 different apps to do it.
Yeah, right.
So it goes back to my original point, is that we want to be invisible, right? And so we have this app list, this app click, or this SDK where we'll expose to operators so that they can bring in alternate payments into their ecosystem. Your point's gold, right? Didn't have to pull up carpet, didn't have to pull up Walker Duck, you didn't have to do a bunch of machine moves, you didn't have to go and touch all your table games, which already has 1 million devices, hanging off of it. Here's a very pragmatic way for you to get started, right? But not try to be all things to everyone. Not, okay, but there's a loyalty component too, and you're gonna have this, and then there's these things as well, and you're gonna have that. So we feel like the way that we're doing it is, you can still have your same payment provider, you can have a different loyalty provider, but if you want to put your toe in the water, that's right up our alley, right? We're game for something like that. And then if we have a chance, I'm certainly a capitalist too. If we have a chance to come behind that and start to sell other products and services, then so be it, if the opportunity presents itself. But you want to give customers options. And when you try to kind of be all things to all people and provide literally everything under the sun, it's really hard to do that. It's really hard to keep promises. So it's actually thinking about how we delight our customers in a very modularized way, right? So if there's certain things that we want to introduce, like, hey, you're happy with this, you're happy with that, that's fine. So that's the approach that we've been taking.
Interesting. Yeah, it sounds like the right way. So you said something though. So you said if you're happy with this payments provider,
Sure.
but you can still work with us because I assume, Pavilion Payments. How does that differentiate? I guess are you saying like you mentioned at least 6 or 8 things that you could do in terms of your various products? You're saying, look, they also have some of these. If you like their 4 modules here, you can use our other 4. Is that what you meant? Or like,
Exactly.
got it. Okay, so you play well with others. Right. So way to say it.
So I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Like at MGM, their core cash access provider is Every Payments. And that relationship's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Very large, both strip and regional property base. A lot of investment back and forth between the parties, but they utilize our check product, like being able to do money movement via ACH, and we have different products like what we call Choice 4, right? So if I want to move a larger amount of money in, and I want that cash in my hand because I want to go play baccarat, I have an option where I can settle that money in a week. I could settle that money in 2 weeks. I could settle that money in 3 weeks. And I'll even float them a month, 4 weeks, where I'm on the hook. I'm guaranteeing or warranting that check transaction.
You Pavilion.
Pavilion
Got
is.
it. Okay.
We're taking on that risk and liability, whether that's bad debt, whatever that is. But the patron, basically pulled out 10 grand, and they've got what we call Choice 4 weeks to settle on that on that transaction. So there may be certain things from a core service standpoint where they're happy with their current provider, but we may provide something a little bit more nuanced that brings cash to the floor. And then within that same ecosystem, there may be other products and services that we offer that they may enjoy. But for the most part, most casinos, they're pretty buttoned up on their payments, and typically there's exclusivity clauses and this, that, and the other. But most of those agreements are pretty buttoned up on what we can and cannot do. But there's always going to be scenarios where we've got to play in the sandbox. Some people will have one core service provider, but then maybe back of house they have cage dispensers or cash recyclers or other types of services that are from competitors that customers like, yeah, you know what, I'd love for you to do everything, but I'm gonna keep 1, 2, and 3, and that works too.
Plus maybe the big powerhouse isn't really looking to do all that other stuff anyway, so like just give me what I want and then play
exactly.
A la carte selection. Where do you think the industry is going wrong as far as like missteps? Obviously this is a huge problem. What are people doing wrong?
Let's talk iGaming first.
Sure.
So with iGaming, when you democratize how you get money into a wallet, there's so many different options, and different people want to do that. You want to be able to provide lots of, call it, paths into the wallet, because you want as much cash as possible available to wager. So whether that's a Visa or MasterCard, like a debit product, whether it's ACH or warranted product, if there's alternative payments like PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay, there's a myriad of ways to get money into a wallet. And inherently you would think that, well, I want to have a myriad of ways to get money out of the wallet.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's for fraud or other reasons. But other times it's things that the edge cases nobody really talks about, like, well, maybe I brought in wallet a certain way, but the reason why I don't want to go in directly to my bank account is I don't want someone to know that I won this $5,000 parlay.
You sound like a married guy. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. That's okay. I got it.
I didn't say that.
Right. Yeah. I'm
Like,
not secretive about it, but I understand it. Yeah,
I'm going to get ice, I'm going to get water, but they're really putting in a parlay.
Right. Yeah,
right?
sure.
But that's expensive, because when you move money in, it costs, and when you egress, when you move money out, it costs just as much. And I think that hurts and depresses the margins on a lot of the iGaming operators. So I think if there is a concerted strategy to be able to have that payout, in a very, call it, unique and succinct way, that's a little bit, less expensive, then I think a lot of the iGaming operators will be able to really realize a lot of margin. And that's one of the things that I think hasn't really been thought through is there's so many ways to get money in, there's so many ways to get money out, but that democracy is really, really expensive, right? So you want people to have choice, but sometimes maybe it's best to tailor them to a choice that's better for their margins. That's just me as a service provider giving that advice to someone who's an iGaming operator, is to really think about the way you get money out and making that a concerted strategy to do it, fast, real time, but in a way that can still protect privacy. And that's one of the things that we've been actively working to solve.
And how do you do that? Like, what would a solution be? Instead of moving all $5,000 out, would you just move like 1,000 out? Would you give them a different incentive to keep? Like, what do you?
So it's interesting. Like to get some of your perspective is think about it this way. It's really gambling behaviors. There's a lot of it could be very erratic, right? And so there's some people who, let's say they win that same $5,000 parlay, they want to move that money back into wherever it came from, just to know that it's there, not to keep it inside of the app. Well, guess what? That hurts the app providers because they got to pay. They got to pay for that, right? Yeah. So you got to find ways to try to incent them to either keep the money there or to really rethink that behavior. Because here's what happens: is that bettor will move that 5,000 out, and that's expensive, only to turn around tomorrow and put it right back in because there's a Sunday slate of NFL games, and you got to pay for that too.
Interesting.
Yeah. So maybe I won't give up a lot of the secret sauce for how we're thinking about it, but what I would say is that we're more than thinking about it. This is our way of really understanding what's hurting our customers and thinking about their business as if it were our own, and offering more real-time payments and other methods to get money out of the wallet that still protects privacy, but gives them that semblance of choice. But sometimes, inviting the Venmos, the Apple Pays, and some of the other providers in an iGaming sense, not brick and mortar, but in iGaming, sounds great. It's very, very convenient, and you want that convenience, but that convenience cost. And so you got to have a strategy around mitigating that.
I'm glad you asked that question, because for me, what I heard originally was what I was taking away was, hey, you might have 10 paths to get the money in, Venmo, PayPal, you name it. That's not always good because maybe Venmo, and I'll pick on them just randomly, but like maybe they're charging 10%. And that's a lot of money. Where the bank charges 1%. I don't know the numbers I'm making up. But that's obviously not beneficial, right? And so if you're a casino, it sounds like offering that variety is good, but in reality, if you just took that line away, I'm guessing that gamble will figure out, all right, I'll just do it this way. Like, I don't need 10, maybe I need 5, right? But what I'm hearing you say is actually, maybe there's some of that, but it's actually more about, no, we just got to stop them from moving in and out all the time.
Sure.
Because, like, to your point, I do it in land base. I laugh. Like, I was with the Swiss guys in here not too long ago. My buddies, we gamble. If I win, I always take Tito, cash it, put the stake back in my pocket, and then the rest I'm gambling with. So now I'm even. And that's the behavior you're probably describing online. Same thing. If I won a parlay and I started with 500, I won $5,000, I'm probably more the guy that's going to, let me put my 500 back. Maybe not the whole thing. But now I just charge the casino money for moving that money. I started my 500, great, but now they've paid whatever percentage on that. And I do that every time I win or lose, or every time. It's like, I can only imagine that adding up for the same money. It's not like it's new money. Yeah. It's just the same money going back and forth. I never would have thought of that. It's pretty wild to see as, cost of business.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure some of those options could be like responsible gaming as well. Like, you don't have to spend it right now, but we'll keep it for you for a week or a couple days or 24 hours, whatever. Like, yeah.
You're right, though. You're right. And that's another area where I feel there's a lot of opportunity for the equipment manufacturers, the payments providers, and the operators to collaborate and work together is on responsible gaming. So when someone opts out and says, hey, I'm raising my hand and I need help. Because, growing up in this industry, I've seen some really, really sad stuff for, people getting divorced, people losing houses, people getting their cars repossessed. Like, we don't really talk about that stuff as enough. But this is something where within our competitive group, I would be happy to share information with a Fabi Cash, an NRT, an Every, a Dytronics. Like, hey, this person opted out on our platform, and I want to make sure that you know it, because when they go next door, that's a disparate cash access provider. It's a disparate casino system, provider. But it's something that we should really be talking more about that I think that we don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, because then you would be able to say, hey, they figured out they had enough here with, let's say, Pavilion / Light and Wonder. But then they went across the street and they had Aristocrat and NRT. You didn't win it, and you can do. So they're not doing anything wrong either. They're just like, this person just didn't opt out twice. So they're, I don't know if it's an addiction, but their bug got the best of them at the second place, and now they're in the hole, right? Whereas you could have potentially stopped that. Yeah, actually, maybe that's the answer. But I was going to ask this: is like if you could set up a collaborative environment, right, where you got the, like, let's say the system providers, maybe mostly, and everybody together, like, what would be the first problem you tackle? Is it responsible gaming, or is it just trying to work better to make it more seamless? Like, what would be the kind of first benefit of collaboration?
Yeah, I think it's that. I think it's working to have like a more seamless, experience. So, I mean, I got out of the systems business a long time ago. I actually worked at Aristocrat for quite some time in system service and professional services, technical training, account management. And I would think as they start to modernize their system, because a lot of the legacy systems, the core architecture behind them, they haven't changed for like 20, 25 years, right? They've been using a lot of the same older, technology, and it takes a really long time to turn that battleship around.
Sure.
But I think when they embrace a more modern web framework, then we could start to do things like, hey, there's a Pavilion SDK. Oh, who's your payment provider? It's they have an SDK. Who's your payment provider? It's NRT. Oh, they have an SDK. Where a lot of the integrations become a lot easier. Because what happens is as you go along your customer journey and you purchase a system, an operator purchases a system, the half-life of that is changing, but typically about 5 years, maybe 5 to 8 years, and some keep them longer than others. A lot of the mainstays will keep them longer than others. But every year, a lot of those system providers are afforded an upgrade if they're part of their maintenance program.
Yeah, right.
And when you upgrade that system, a lot of those connections to third parties and associated equipment providers, they break, right? But I think the more modern framework is there, we can provide a better customer journey and better experience by having more modern web tools that make us, again, more invisible. It gives the casino what they want. Like, I want your system, and that's who I pick to be my payment provider. Nobody should be getting nosebleeds doing the installs. It's a waste of time. Nobody has time for that shit.
Upgrade should be good.
Exactly.
Right? Like, it's funny as you're talking, I'm thinking about Salesforce, right? Because, like, for example, I've used Salesforce in a lot of different organizations. We upgrade all the time. Used a lot of third parties. Surprisingly, they never break with the upgrades. Like, now I'm assuming behind the scenes, Salesforce is going, hey, Pavilion, FYI, we're doing this upgrade, so your team has time to adjust so that when it clicks, everybody's on board. But, like, we're not doing that in gaming. You work at risk, I'll pick on them for half a second. It's like, they did a big upgrade, and it's great. But it's like, oh, we didn't tell Every. So now Every's like, oh, it is great, but I need 3 months to catch up or however long, right? And so there's a window where it's like, well, it's not us, it's them. But, that'd be good, solve some of those problems.
Yeah. So you mentioned iGaming. What about land-based when it comes to what they're doing wrong or what they can improve on? Is it just that? Is it the systems?
No, I think certainly cashless. But we've already talked quite a bit about cashless. The other thing I would say about land-based is the infrastructure. So that's why we've really had to think through with our cashless strategy how to remove as many distractions and technological hurdles out of the value chain, right? So having to run all new wire, obtain all these licenses, having to make all these infrastructure changes, those are just super, super expensive. But that coincides with not having good cell service on the floor or good Wi-Fi on the floor. So I think a lot of the operators are working to improve infrastructure, and with the improvement of that infrastructure, we're able to bring in, call it slicker tools to help them realize, what they need. The other thing that I would say is, I think for like land-based and brick and mortar, is in our vertical, and I'm just being specific to payments, we have to be more customer centric. And it's almost like with a lot of the customers, they expect you to have problems, right? They expect you to have downtime. They expect for a machine to be down. And are they mad about it? Sure. But it's almost like it's a little bit of PTSD. Like, okay, well, that's how all of them are. They're all terrible. And I hate that. I hate the feeling
Yeah.
that that people feel that way, because in brick and mortar especially, your best product, it damn well better be service. It has to be service, because everybody's pretty much going to have the same things, if you will. There's always going to be little nuances here and some innovative things here and there. Typically, people will catch up. In the regulatory framework, it's never an excuse to not innovate. You can never blame it on regulators or blame it on operators. You got to do what you got to do. But for me, I would think the biggest thing inside of brick and mortar, like specific to me and my house and the people within our vertical, is being unserious about service. And that's one of the things, why I wanted to come to, to Pavilion. And even in my previous stops, there was a common theme that there was a concerted effort about providing better service, best in class service. But in the brick and mortar sense, that's what's got to happen. Is a lot of people need to pick their game up.
Yeah, that's wild. It's funny because then it just paints when you said that, it paints a picture to me of a history of the payments business, just saying, we're just going to tell you what you get as opposed to the customer driving, right? So is that kind of the history there? Not obviously necessarily saying Pavilion specifically, but just, you said the customers just sort of like, yeah, we expect it to break. We know it's going to be a problem. You're just going to tell me what I can have. Like, is that just how it started? Like payments companies just like, here's what we can do, take it or leave it type of thing? Or
I think it's a variety of things. But a lot of times as gaming has grown, and as we start to see all these markets blow up and like route-based gaming, new states coming online, how have you seen the payments providers grow along with that? Like, growth is hard. You've got to be able to scale and do that. So I think that's a large part of it. And a lot of times you've got some payment companies that knock down a heavyweight account, but behind the scenes, when you look at their scope of operations, their breadth of operations, implementation, account management, call center, those reps that are tied to that call center, break fix, which ones are on Pavilion payroll, who do I choose as a outsource provider in a market that maybe I don't have the infrastructure? Like, little things like that matter, right? And in some instances, I think there have been other payment providers that knock down a heavyweight account, but behind the scenes, the operations is more of a flyweight.
You said
right?
they got some
Or
featherweight infrastructure.
featherweight,
Yeah, exactly.
a featherweight infrastructure.
Yeah.
And that becomes apparent very fast when the little things, slip through the cracks. So we're very, very cognizant of that. And what I love about what we're doing at Pavilion is a lot of our investment is going into building out our service capability and customer centricity.
Awesome.
How did you get into gaming?
I got into gaming because I couldn't find a job.
Okay.
So
Like most of us.
most of us.
I love that.
I was active duty Air Force, and after my time in the Air Force, I worked DOD, and then FAA for a while, Federal Aviation Administration,
Okay.
back to DOD, and we ended up getting stationed. I was out of the military, but the family, we got stationed down at Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi.
Okay.
And so, as a degreed engineer, it was really tough to find a job. But I'm one of those people that I've got to do something as a provider. So we sold our house in California, made a good amount of cash. I could have just sat around for a while, sat in the gym or did whatever. I couldn't do that. So immediately I started knocking out my master's just to make sure that I was current, using my VA benefits to, the full, the benefit of that service. So I started knocking down my master's. And I went to work at a prepaid call center in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. And AT&T wasn't always AT&T. It was Bell South. It was AT&T. Then they became Singular Wireless. And they went back to AT&T. And so, I wasn't making any money. It wasn't but for me, it wasn't about that. I just I had to do something, I just can't sit still. And somebody there was like, man, there's a job fair that's gonna happen down at the convention center in Biloxi. You should go. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. So I had two things that were sitting there. I could have gone back into the military, and the job that was offered to me was called the Hurricane Hunters, and that's a C-130 unit that's based in Biloxi.
C-130 is a helicopter?
No, you literally fly into the middle of
like
Category 5
planes. Yeah, okay.
hurricanes to do a lot of testing, atmosphere, pressure, force, strain, this, that, and the other. Or go to this job fair and let's just, maybe you need to get out of defense and don't put yourself in that corner. So there was a lab director there for the Mississippi Gaming Commission. And he's like, hey man, if you can work on jets, you can work on a slot machine, And so I went to work for the Mississippi Gaming Commission. I cherished that opportunity. I learned a ton. I learned games. I learned systems. I understood the regulatory framework, people getting licensed, people not getting licensed, some of the boneheaded things people do. Also, a lot of the scams. At the time, they were transitioning from coin to Tito tickets.
Oh, yeah.
People would put like cutting boards inside of the bottom where a coin would come through the coin hoppers. They would try to trick coin comparators to. So I saw a lot of the ins and outs, but I learned a ton. But pay was you getting paid once a month, and that was a little bit low. And then from there, I went to Aristocrat, and project manager, director, went to every payments, vice president, senior vice president, executive vice president. I went off on my own, did a startup, sold that startup, sold a license to the code to a major gaming manufacturer, to going back into executive management as a CEO at Passport, to coming over as the president at Pavilion, where I'm working in private equity. And that's just something like in my career arc that I'm really, really excited about is how to be very, very aggressive about building a business. So literally, I got into gaming because I couldn't find a job in Mississippi, but it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I never thought that me and my family would be so blessed.
So it seems like it all really worked out for you. But the question I have is, do you ever regret not flying a jet into a hurricane? Because that seems like
a C-130. Those are the big ones.
Yeah,
those
I'm not. I know it sounded big, but like,
no, man, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm not a daredevil personally, so I didn't know if you're like, I just missed the adrenaline rush of flying straight into a Cat 5 hurricane in some jet.
No, I think I would have picked the gaming job fair as well.
I mean, sounds right. But like, I just, some people are built different. I didn't serve. I don't know. I don't have whatever that is. Right?
Where were you tackle at?
UNLV here in town.
You happy with Mullen coming up?
I love Mullen. Yeah, Mullen's good. We got, weirdly, worked out the former Raiders D coordinators, our D coordinator right now, Paul Gunther. So because our original guy had some issues. Personally, not like he didn't do anything boneheaded. He just had some family stuff to attend to. So we subbed in the guy that was coaching the Raiders for so long, had like the top defense. So it's like, that should be good. So it's a good program on the app. So I'm looking forward to it. I love it,
man. I'm always happy to see programs on the come up, man. But I thought that was a pretty boss move to get him in there. Barry did a good job, but I think Dan's ridiculous.
It's like, so Coach Odom, Barry Odom, he's talking about like set the bar, because they go, hey, now you can prove that you can win here. And then I think that's where a guy like Dan Mullen comes in. He goes, well, I know I win everywhere I go. Let's take a shot. Like we got high hopes for the Rebs this year. I'm also a Raider fan, so I always have high hopes that get disappointed. But I'm trying to hopefully not have that happen with the Rebels. So gamble at all? Any fun gaming stories from your time traveling this industry?
I'm terrible. I'm terrible, meaning you rarely ever see me, like if I sit down and play a little bit of table games, I don't know what I'm doing.
Got it.
If I'm playing slots, I know exactly, par sheets, denoms, what it is, what it's not, what I should get, all that from being in the industry. But I've never had an appetite or taste for it. I was a military brat before I went to college and joined the military.
Sure.
And I went to 7 different high schools.
Oh, wow.
Over like 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. So New York, Virginia, Washington, D.C., Virginia, Redlands, California, about an hour outside of London, England. And then back to California. And so I graduated from Redlands High School in Redlands, California. I have no roots there. Just there's an Air Force base there, and it is what it is.
There we are. Yeah.
But you get so used to moving that you actually find it to be a superpower. You're not nervous to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
I got to make new friends. Great, But what was interesting is like a funny gaming story is our prom was in Palm Springs, California, and that's where the dinner was. And at the time, I had turned 18. And Morongo Casino was just a little, just a building, like a bingo hall, and soda machines, and just a handful of games. And at that dinner, like Gary Coleman from
Oh, really?
From-
From what is that show? Yeah.
uh,
I know who you're talking about.
Different Strokes.
Yeah, that's right.
And Willis, what was
I was gonna say,
what was his name? I can't remember. Todd Bridges.
Okay,
Todd
yeah.
Bridges, right? Is at that steakhouse. They were sitting there, and it was the most surreal thing. And I remember we finished dinner and we went over to Morongo, and I was looking at this place like, huh? And then, my previous company was Passport Technology, and Morongo is one of their amazing customers. And if you go inside of Morongo, it's just a beautiful experience. And it was very. I remember as CEO at the time when I was CEO of Passport, I was sitting in this meeting, and it just hit me that I don't know, however long ago, 30 plus years, I'm in a steakhouse looking at Arnold and Willis Drummond, going to try to put a couple pennies, at the Morongo, which was, just kind of,
Just a little
building
bit
up
all,
to the gravity of it hitting you that you're sitting around the table with these, these executives. It just lets you know not just how small gaming is, but you just never know. And I remember telling them at that meeting how much it meant to me, their growth, and how their journey as a tribal operator, how happy I was for them to see this beautiful resort, sitting there in Palm Springs. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. I live in Palm Springs, so I've been to Morongo before.
Did you
it's
see
very
the
beautiful.
growth? How the growth happened?
No, I wasn't there long enough. I've only been there for 4 years, but
She looks to me because she's a Broncos fan, so anytime the Raiders come up, she's like, "Sorry for you, pal."
that's too bad.
But they wish they had Brock Bowers on
that's
that
right.
field. That's the guy.
They do. That's our guy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh man, this has been fun. Last thing, so call someone out. Who do you think should come and sit in your chair? You've been great, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you doing this, but we don't know all the cool people. That's what we always say. We don't know all the interesting people. It's like, who do you think would do well sitting there?
I think Peter Arcero.
Yeah.
And Peter might be mad at me for this, but look, man, I think UNLV alum.
Yep.
But what I really like is his mind behind how ambition and growth has to, there's got to be a plan, and the strategy that Yamava and the San Manuel tribe, like what they're doing, it's insane, and that's another one where, right around the corner from Morongo as a teenager, I remember, Samuel, before they even had a hotel, and they were growing as well, and over 7,000 slots, a hotel tower. They got the palms, and to see their arc as well has been super impressive. But I love his mind around strategy and the guest experience. As a vendor, I can't tell you of someone who, I've been chewed out plenty of times, right? It's just one of those things. Everybody likes to talk about their wins, but I've taken some pretty big L's too. But what I love about Peter is keeping vendors honest about their promises and making them really think about their product and their product strategy. And I was talking to one of our internal team members about the difference between a product manager and a product owner, right? And one of the key things that I see in a product manager is actually getting up from behind your desk and going and talking to a customer. And what I love about someone like Peter is he's willing to make time to talk to you about what you're doing, to give you some real world, no bullshit, whether it's not that it's gonna work or not, but is it priced right?
Yeah.
Have you really thought through this? Have you thought through that? How are you gonna support it?
Yeah.
This, that, and the other. And I love that candor about it, but he does it in a very, very friendly way. And when there's issues, let's keep the main thing the main thing.
Yeah.
Let's not do any of this. Let's fix it first, and then we can worry about blame later. And you want that in an operator. That's what you want in a partner. So I would definitely say he would be a good one. I don't know if anybody's asked for him to be on.
No, that's all right. He has been, but it's good. I've known Peter a long time. Back in, you mentioned the Rebels. Like we would always reminisce about that because he was Rebel guy. And so we talk about that. So it's he's a good one. So we chatted with him at the Eiler show. So he's in. We just got to sort the schedule out, but that's a good call out now. Put some extra pressure on him. So
if he says no, a Kevin Nephew at Seneca.
Okay.
So Seneca is one of our partners, and I spent the majority of my life. So even with all that movement, like in the upstate New York area, just the product that they built out there is insane. It's amazing. I don't know if he's ever been on the show, but
he hasn't. No, yeah, he hasn't. I don't think Peter will say no, but we'll take Kevin anyway as a bonus. That's
Yeah.
That's a good throw in. So no, that's perfect. But cool. Yeah, like I said, thanks for coming by. This has been awesome. And,
Thank you.
Yeah, cheers, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks so much for coming.
Cool.
Just like that. All right.
Good?
Yeah, I thought so.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
How'd you feel?
Good.